Hello everyone, Guilherme from Infinity here. In our last webinar, we had partners and customers asking how we created this action button to pre-fill everything with the last year result. And in this video, we'll do a step-by-step tutorial to show you how to create the same thing in your environment. Okay, so here we are inside Qlik Sense, but it works the same way in Qlik On-Premise. And here I have a rate area where I can include, let's say, 50% to increase the last year result by 50%. And when I click on this button, this is what happens. It calculates the same thing for the months. I can even do a batch copy and include maybe different rates for each one of these rows, like 10% here, 30 there, and click again. And this will automatically calculate and update the values. After that, I can click save and my budget is done. Now let's start the tutorial. I will scroll down to a native Qlik table. This is just a simple normal table. As you can see, I have here in the data section the dimensions, which are country, product, and the measures, which are the sum of January, the sum of February. We could have set analysis instead. It's really up to you and how your data model was created. In this case, this is how it was built. And the first step is to convert this object into an Infinity object. I will go to custom objects in here. I already have Infinity installed in my tenant. And I will drag here the forms general on top of the table and just click in convert. Now it will ask me for an instance ID because we are adding editable fields and it needs some place, some table to start storing this data. I will copy the instance ID from this object here on the top. So I can click here, copy it from here, and just paste it in this object. And notice that I'm inside the form configuration section. Now I have the same things, the dimensions, the measures, just like Qlik. We can start now to add editable fields. So the first step now is to add here January. I have a list of editable fields that I can choose from. In our case, we're going to start with a number and the column name. So this will be January. I'll just call it Jan. Same thing. I can change the type or the formatting. In this case, I'll just leave as number. I could add February, March, and all the other fields, but for this example, to make it shorter, I will just leave with January, okay? Now, we have the option to hide certain columns from here. They will still be here in the object, but not visible for the users. So I'll go to February, hide column, and February won't be visible anymore. Same thing for the others. Another thing that you could do instead would be to use a variable here and hide it in the width in pixels. So if I change this 100 to 0, the column will be hidden the same way. But in this case, we can use an expression. And that's how we are displaying and hiding the columns in here with a variable. There's this slider here that is changing the value of a variable. And in the fields, I have this expression. So if the V column display is greater than, in this case, 3, because it's March, give me the width as 100. Otherwise, just hide it with 0. And that's how we created this transition here. So I can display the real measures from last year or just leave the editable fields. Now going back to our example here on the bottom, I will now hide all these columns and just leave January so we can continue. Okay, so now we have the last year January and the editable January, which will be our budget. And the next step is to create an action button. We can go to Actions and add a new sequence. By default, the activation type is a toolbar button, which means that this action will be triggered when we click on this button. But I will change this now because I want to have a row context, just like we have here on the top. So a button for each one of these rows. And we can change that by going to row button here in activation type. And the label could be anything. So I will just do the same thing that I did here on the top and just create these icons here like this. And now I need an editable field in form configuration to create that same structure, to create and retrieve that button in here. So in add field, I go to action button and I will find the button that I just created. In this case, this one here. Here it is. This means that when I click in here, that action will be triggered. Now let's define, and before doing that, I need to give it a name. And in this case, this won't really matter. It won't be saved. And the label, normally I use character 10, so it's a blank space. So the user doesn't see anything in here. Now going back to the actions, we can, inside this label or inside this action, configure the actions that we want to create. So the first one will be to set the cell value for January with the same value that we have in the actual measure. So let's go to the action list. And there are multiple actions here, but we are looking for the set cell value. This one right here. We can choose the name of the column that we want to set and the value. So if I type in here 10, let's say, when I click on this button, it will give me 10 for January. Same thing for those other rows. Okay. Now I will do two things. The first one is to change the column order because my button is after January and it should be before that, like this. It looks better now. In form configuration, I can change the settings such as the width of the column in field styling. So instead of 100, it could be maybe 70. I could make it centralize it and even change the colors if I wanted. Now going back here to the actions, instead of putting 10 in the value section, I want to refer to the measure. So this measure here, we can refer to the columns that are in the object using some references. And to find these references, we go to column order. We find the measure or the dimension that we want to refer to, click on it, and here is the formula reference. In this case, there is a specific, what we call a special variable. So we can refer to that using $ row dot something. In this case, it's ME0. I'll copy this formula reference, go back here, and paste it in here. In this case, I want this to be interpreted as a number. So I need to include here a hash before the row and everything in single quotes, like this. Now, when I click on this button and on this action button, it will copy exactly that value. Okay, just like that. Now, the next step is to include another field called rate. So we can increase or decrease the value from last year. Let's go to edit sheet, add field, number, and I'll call this one rate. The format will be number, but we can change to percentage. Now in column order, I will move this one up. Maybe here, or even before the button. And in action, I will change the value. So we have this expression referring to the field that is here, in this case, January, but I want this to be multiplied by 1 plus the rate field. And we refer to editable fields using the name of the field. So in this case, if I go to column order and find the rate field, this is the reference. It's row.rate. Now going back here to the expression, I will change it to times 1 plus that reference. In this case, it's row.rate. And just missed a hash sign in here. So that's how we use this special variable. Row dot the name of the editable field, everything in single quotes. I can now hit apply. And if I don't have anything in here, it will just copy the value, so 30. But if I want to increase that by 50%, click again on the button and it's now 45. So that's how we start with these actions. Now, if we want to do that for every row, we can include another action. So let me just first clear this here and go into edit sheet. And I will include another action here called batch copy. And this will be activated when I click on this button. There's an action called execute other sequence, and that's what we're going to use in here. So go to add action, execute other sequence, and I need to find the sequence here or the action. And by default, it can't find things that are not different than none. So I need to go back here to my action and change it from row button to none. Okay. So now going back here to my batch copy action, configure actions, I can find it here. And I want to execute that for each row. Click here. We can now go back to the object. And when I click in here, it will execute the action for each row. So if I have something here, let's say just here with 50% and same thing for this row, and click on this button, it will still do what we wanted to do. So that's it for this video. If you have more questions or ideas to create something related to budget or any other thing inside of Qlik, please let us know and we'll be happy to help you. Thank you.